Monday, October 28th, Grafton School District Board of Education meeting to order. Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this portion of the meeting is a time set aside for public comment. I see no public in front. Any public over here wishing to make public comment this evening? Okay.
Okay. I'm from Mary Helen Hogan from the Grafton Education Foundation. And,
Mary, can you move over here so I can...
oh, I know.
It's all good.
This isn't on like Facebook. I'm Mary Helen Hogan from the Grafton Education Foundation. They wanted me to mention that our Seeds to Harvest mailings have all been mailed out, and we're collecting donations now. We also are in the midst of changing up a couple things for our fundraisers this year, and they are looking for a word to that. That's under works right now. I don't think it's going to be called the School Bowl anymore. It's going to be like the Spring Fling or something like that. They haven't come up with an exact name. Porches in the Park was a big success despite having to reschedule about 5 times because of inclement weather. And we have a few new GGAF members. We had a couple cocktail parties in the summer trying to entice new community members to be part of GEF. You don't have to. It's not a huge commitment. We meet once a month, but we do a lot of work in a short amount of time, and we do a lot for all of our schools. So if any of the principals or administrators know anyone that would like to be part of that, please send them our way. We are looking for new board members, president, treasurer, secretary, all for next year. And we need to get some younger people involved, or older people too, like me, that don't have any. Well, I have a lot to do, but just that would like to help the community out. And it's just really important that this gets to have some really young, active members that want to see it through, just like, I've been doing it since kindergarten, junior in college now, so that's all we have to say.
Thank you, Mary Helen, for your time and time with the foundation as well.
No problem.
Seeing no other public comments in line, we'll move on to the consent agenda items. We have the approval of the minutes from the September 23rd, 2019 board meeting, and the statement of receipts and expenditures for September 2019. Motion to approve those consent agenda items.
After getting answers to some of my questions, I would make a motion to approve the minutes and bills from September.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and it passes. Superintendent's report. Jess.
Yes, a number of things to report out on. Last week was Red Ribbon Week in all of our schools. So as a reminder, Red Ribbon Week is alcohol, tobacco, and other drug and violence prevention awareness campaign that occurs across the nation. It's been going on since 1988 and is the oldest and largest drug prevention program in the nation. So all across Ozaukee County, all the middle schools and high schools have a speaker that we bring in. Reggie Dobbs is our speaker this year. At the elementary levels, they have daily announcements about making healthy decisions, and posters are hung up, and then they email some stuff home to parents as well. 7th graders have their annual Courage Retreat with the Youth Frontiers. GHS high school leaders come over and help with that. And then in front of District Office and High School, the Leo's Club has a wrecked car, reminding students to not drink and drive, as well as not text and drive. And then new this year, and I put this in front of each of you on your computers tonight, the high school hosted the first ever Ozaukee County demonstration of every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes is a nationwide program designed to instill in students the consequences of driving drunk or driving distracted, to the creation of a video, as well as a mock accident demonstration. So Grafton High School teacher Fran Grant and seniors Leah McKelvey and Kristen Van Ryzen planned this event with the help of multiple community organizations. Then last Thursday afternoon, they had a crash scene enactment in the west parking lot that all high school students viewed. And then on Friday morning, there was an all-school assembly in the auditorium. Very emotional. It's a realistic scenario whereby a current student is driving under the influence of alcohol and hits other classmates, which results in 2 students dying. So it's a realistic enactment of what can happen when people are driving under the influence or driving distracted. In the auditorium, when you had the all-school meeting with that, you're having parents who are having to do an obituary for their kid, the student who was arrested having to speak about that, and the Malkowskis, they came and spoke as well, just as parents and how they've lost their own son and how that continues to impact them. So tomorrow night there is a community viewing. So on the back side of this, we've been pushing this in social media and all over the place, talking about this. It's from 6:30 to 7:30. We saw part of the video on Friday morning. They're still doing some editing to go with that. They'll be showing that tomorrow night. And then next month we'll be asking Ms. Grant and those 2 students and anyone else that they want to bring to come to the board and sort of share what they learned, because this is hundreds of hours putting this together. If you flip to the middle area, you'll see the people that were involved in it, with committee members, crash victim members, living dead members, other community members, the sponsorships that were on there, and then the next page is some of the logos from some of the various groups. So there's just tons of time and effort that was put into this thing, and community supporting it through their time, but also through financial donations. So we'll have them come next month and sort of share that, what they learned. It's a great experience, I think, for them. We're excited to have the community come, people that have teenagers or preteens even. I think it's a great thing to have your kids, to have you come as a parent, to see everything. It's really great. So we're proud of the work that those students and Fran did, and just the partnerships that we had. I know Scott was talking about multiple meetings that he was attending with just Aurora and the fire department, the police department, and all those different pieces. Everyone sort of showing up on that day and helping us to be able to have it really be an impactful thing for our kids. So that's coming up there. And then with the musicals, we have 2 musicals coming up. John Long has their musical Shrek. It runs from November 1st through 3rd. Or I'm reading the wrong one. Or I'm reading from, it is Good Man Charlie Brown. It's actually last year, Shrek. Right. But the date is right. I knew Good Man Charlie Brown because my daughter's with that. So thank you. It's not Shrek. That's good you know that too, because your daughter's in it also. It does run from November 1st through 3rd. And then for the 3rd year, they're offering a free dress rehearsal on Thursday night for senior citizens. And the high school is having their musical Cinderella, which is November 15th through the 17th and the 22nd through the 24th. So some great opportunities to see some of our students in the fine arts areas, and we want to make sure we are able to recognize them at that time. And then our fall athletic teams are coming to a close. So last week and then over the weekend we had some things happen. So football, they went on the road to Schwabenon, and they won their first round playoff game, 49-24, so they traveled to West Pier, play this Friday night at 7 o'clock. Senior Joey Giorgi is one of 5 players from week 1 of the playoffs being considered for the WisSports.net Player of the Week. So congratulations to him and the whole team. Boys and girls cross country competed in their sectional last Saturday afternoon. Congratulations to Nathan Baker, Rachel Swenson, and Maddie Willie on qualifying for the state meet, which will be held Saturday in Wisconsin Rapids. Volleyball won their first match of the playoffs last week before losing to Kewaskum Thursday night, so their season has finished. Boys soccer, they lost their regional opener last Thursday to Port. This game marked the final game for Coach Darn Arnold, as he'll be stepping down as the boys coach after 28 seasons. So Don has been a great role model for all of our student athletes as well as our community during his tenure. He will definitely be missed in that role. He is still continuing on as girls. He's been doing boys and girls. He will still be coaching girls in the spring, but that was his final game as the boys coach. So he'll be greatly missed. But we're happy he's still impacting our girls in the soccer program there. And then girls swimming and diving has their conference meet coming up. The swimming portion on Saturday, the diving portion is Friday evening. Both of those events are occurring at Homestead. And they advance the sectional meet the next is at Jefferson High School the next weekend to advance the state. And then with soccer finishing, I think probably an important asterisk to note is that even with all the heavy rain we had this fall, the work that was accomplished 2 years ago on those fields, we didn't have to cancel any games. We had one game that was canceled because of inclement weather that was coming, and the opposing team canceled. They said they weren't coming. But speaking with Kevin Moore, we did not have to cancel any of our games because of rain or the field being wet or unplayable, which is the exact opposite of what it was 4 years ago. We were looking at fixing that, so the work that we invested in that area has come to fruition. And then one more thing I wanted to put on here that isn't on my list is new this year, we have a new group of teachers and parents working together in our district to provide our community with education on issues that impact our youth. One of the big things that we're hearing about right now is vaping and juuling and so forth. And so the first parent and community education series event will be the truth about vaping, juuling, and your child on November 13th from 6 to 7:30 in the high school commons. This free event will include a straightforward discussion of the significant health and safety issues of vaping. And so that's also something that we're pleased to be bringing forward to the community and helping parents out with that issue. And with that, that concludes my report.
We have 2 proclamations.
And I could use those too.
Do we-
I have those. I'm glad you're following along. I actually read them beforehand to make sure they're on one page. So the first proclamation is for National School Lunch Week, which is October 14th through 18th. And just so people in the audience and here don't think that we forget these, we actually get these, like I was saying to Kara, like we got this on the Monday of the proclamation week. And so they don't send it out in advance, so otherwise we would read them beforehand, sort of like we did with National School Board Week or Wisconsin School Board Appreciation Week. We did that, we recognized it beforehand. So they send us these late, so just so you don't think that we forget to put them on the agenda, because both of these, the month is almost over and we're reading them. But for National School Lunch Week, which was the 14th to the 18th, whereas the National School Lunch Program plays an important role in helping to ensure that every child in the nation is ready to learn, because a hungry or undernourished child is less likely to be an eager and attentive student, and whereas the National School Lunch Program has a demonstrated commitment to our children's health and well-being, serving nutritious meals that are balanced with vitamins and calories, which supports healthy eating patterns, and whereas in Wisconsin, over 2,400 public and private schools participate in the National School Lunch Program and serve 478,000 lunches each school day, directly supporting Wisconsin's Every Child a Graduate agenda, and whereas the success of this effort is due largely to resourceful and creative local food service administrators, managers, and staff working in cooperation with parents, teachers, community groups, government personnel, and students. Therefore, be it resolved that October 14th through 18th, 2019 be proclaimed as National School Lunch Week, a time to celebrate the importance of a program that helps keep students nourished so they can learn. National School Lunch Week, school lunch, what's on your playlist. And to celebrate that week, we put it on social media and shared with the board, but we went around to each of our schools and presented an apple and a little note of thanks to all of our food service workers who do a great job. We've had a successful transition to Chartwell's this year, and we appreciate the work they do with our kids on a daily basis, and so we thank them and recognize them in that way. And then also it's Gifted Education Month for October 1st through the 31st, 2019. And whereas our children are youth are one of Wisconsin's greatest resources, accordingly, all students with intellectual, academic, creative, leadership, and artistic gifts and talents need to be appropriately identified, instructed, and supported. And whereas just as giftedness comes in a variety of domains, it has no limits related to age, race, ethnicity, or natural origin, economic status, sex, gender identity, or gender expression, sexual orientation, religion, multilingualism, or exceptionality. And whereas collaboration between school district staff, families, organizations, community members, nations, and the students themselves serve as the critical foundation for supporting all high ability and high potential children and youth. And whereas the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction joins the leadership of the Wisconsin Association for Talented and Gifted, the Wisconsin Center for Academically Talented Youth, the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, the Association of Wisconsin School Administrators, the Wisconsin Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, the Wisconsin RTI Center, and the Cooperative Educational Service agencies, as we work together to support Wisconsin's children with gifts and talents, therefore be it resolved that I, Carolyn Stanford Taylor, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, do hereby proclaim in the state of Wisconsin Gifted Education Month, October 1st through the 31st. Thank you for the reminder, and with that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. I just want to say on behalf of the entire board, I want to personally thank Don Harmon for his leadership and his commitment to the boys soccer program the past 28 years. Just truly a remarkable series of accomplishments over that time period, and he's developed a lot of young men through that sport of soccer, and will continue to do so for the women as he continues in that role. So I want to publicly thank him for that.
One thing I should have said too is one of the cool things that they did is they had, for that game that night, they had from all the years, you get your picture as a team, and he had all the team pictures from starting back. And so there was actually some young men that probably in their late 20s, early 30s, who were standing on the fence next to me, and they were finding their own pictures on that fence as it rolled all the way around from the beginning of the thing all the way to the west side of where the field is. So it's pretty cool to see students, former students, coming out to support the team as well as to support Coach Arnold, knowing it would be his last home game. No one knew if they won, they would advance, but for sure they were hosting again, so they'd come out to support him.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Any questions from Jeff? All right, then let's move on to committee reports. We had one committee meeting. The Finance Committee met on October 21st.
Correct, yes. Finance Committee met a week ago, October 21st. We reviewed the recommendation from the Health Insurance Renewal Committee, composed of staff members throughout the district and members of the Finance Committee. We had an extensive discussion about their recommendation and other options to look at. And then we also reviewed the 2019-20 final budget and tax levies certification, which we will be talking about later tonight.
Any questions for Mark? Thanks, Mark. Then we'll move on to the personnel report.
Yes, so we have one item for approval from the board as well as some informational hires. So Cindy Zozak, fourth grade teacher at Kennedy Elementary School, has decided to retire at the end of this school year. Cindy has been an educator with us for 21 years. So we recognized her just this past fall as we started off. She's on our signs and each boards for being here 20 years. She's starting her 21st year. She has taught multiple grades in our district. She's taught 6th grade, she's taught kindergarten, she's taught 3rd grade, and she's taught 4th grade over the years. So we wish Cindy well as she finishes out her tenure here and as she looks towards retirement. We'll recognize her officially in the spring as we have maybe other retirees as well as we've always done in the past. But we would bring this forward. She's just turned in her letter. So there's resignation, retirement at the end of the school year with Cindy, as well as then we have some informational hires. We have Bethany Cici, special ed aide at Woodview Elementary School, Lisa Didier, special ed aide at John Long Middle School, Valerie Hankey, special ed aide at John Long Middle School, and a few resignations of Alyssa Gemsky, a special ed aide at Woodview, and Terry Mouse, a special ed aide at John Long Middle School.
All right, I will entertain a motion to accept the retirement of Cindy Zozak, fourth grade teacher at Kennedy Elementary School.
So moved.
Any discussion?
No, I just had a question. Jeff, how many aides are still openings are there still at the middle school and high school? Do you know?
I don't, but I know people that do.
I believe we have 2 at the middle school and 2 at the high school, as I see the nodding heads in confirmation.
Any additional questions? All right, all those in favor of the motion regarding the retirement, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Item D, class of 2019 ACT report.
Yeah, so the next couple items we have are going to relate to some academic standards that there's academic data that's been released. And so we're starting off with our class 2019 ACT report. I have Scott Manti and Elizabeth Minty to walk us through the next couple items. So we'll start with ACT.
All right, good evening, everyone. We recently presented our state-level ACT data from last year's junior class. Tonight, we will be presenting the ACT data for our class of 2019, so our most recent graduating class. So as you can see here, this is the crew that took the 2017-18 junior state test and graduated in 2019. So as far as the data that you will look at tonight, the score included is their most recent ACT score from each student. So students that took it on multiple occasions, their most recent score is included in that report. And basically it'll give you kind of an analysis of our student readiness for college level coursework. So the first chart to take a look at for the 2019 graduating class is our as our group took this as juniors, and then once again their final ACT scores. They're graduated from the class of 2019. So basically what you want to see is you're looking for kind of the increase that occurred over the course of that time. So between students taking the state exam and then having multiple opportunities to retake if so desired. So really what I want you to take a look at here is the level of increase within each of the areas. So if you start with the composite score, you saw that increasing a little bit over a half point, so 0.6 of composite score increase. Consistent with science reading, math's a little bit lower at 0.2, and then English was a 0.7 change in a positive direction. Just for you to note, as far as the composite score, the state composite score increased by 0.4 during that time. So state increase of 0.4, Grafton High School increase of 0.6. One other thing, as far as this report is usually given a little bit earlier, like last month, but ACT added a July test, so therefore the data, we did not receive the data until mid-October. So that's why it's on the October board meeting this year. One of the things that we take a look at closely with you each year is the results for our students who took the ACT on multiple occasions. So when you take a look at this year's students, you can see that 46 of our students had their score increase. That's about 27% of that class population. 11 students saw a decrease. That's about 7%. 16 students, or 9%, the score was remained unchanged, and about 57% did not retake. So when you compare those numbers to last year 31% increased, 7% decreased, so that was consistent. 5% remained unchanged, and 57% did not retake. So that our numbers are pretty consistent over the course of time. So we're not seeing any large changes there. And then a national percentile of students that retake is 44%. We're at 43% that was retaking at Grafton High School. So the national was 44%. And then always we give you our graduates as compared to the state graduates. We usually fare very well once we take a look at this comparison. And this class of 2019 is really no different. What you can take a look at is across the board, you'll see a difference of at least 2.0 points in all of the categories. So reading and math 2.0, composite 2.1, English 2.2, science 2.3. That is closer to where we normally are above the state average. If you recall, the information I shared in last year's junior class was closer to 3 points, or in some case 3 points above the state average. This is more consistently where we are as data that we've shared with you in the past. So that remained very consistent with the class of 2019. And at this point of time, I will turn it over to Elizabeth, who does a wonderful job working with us on ACT. She's going to walk you through the college and career readiness benchmarks in terms of our students achieving those, and then talk about some changes. We're forecasting some changes for the board as well tonight as we look forward at the data beginning next year.
Okay. So I know we have talked about benchmarks before, but just to review, ACT sets the benchmarks as the number that represents likelihood of success in certain college level entry courses. So for example, a score of 18 on the English session equates to a 50% chance of a B or higher and a 75% chance of a C or higher in like a Comp 101 type class. For math, the number is 22, and that correlates to success in college level algebra. For reading, it's also 22, and that correlates to success in like a history or psychology entry level course. And then for biology, it's slightly higher at 23 for success. So our percent of students who reached those numbers remained fairly stable. 70% English, we were at 73 last year, but we're usually right in the low 70s, so that's pretty typical. Algebra, 57%, that's up 1% from 56% last year. Social science, with that reading score, we were down a little bit, went from 59 to 55, but still kind of in the same target. The one that changed the most was actually the number of students who met that biology benchmark. We went up 7% from 50% to 57, so that was a healthy increase. And then our overall percentage of students who met all four went from 41 to 42%. We really like to see that the state numbers 24 and we're 42. We like to see that gap just get bigger and bigger, because that means more and more of our students are prepared for the full range of courses that they will see when they go to college. So, as Mr. Manti referenced, we have some changes to talk about. You may have heard about this in the media, but on August 8th, ACT dropped quite a bombshell by announcing very suddenly that there are some big changes coming to the test in September of 2020. So some of these changes have the potential to impact our current juniors. The seniors will be gone by then, but our current juniors will be impacted, and then every class before that. So the first big change, and these are changes to the 7 national testing dates, those are the weekend tests. These changes will not affect how we administer our statewide testing. That'll continue to be paper and pencil, full battery, as it has been. But starting in September, students will have the option to retest a single section or multiple sections without retesting the whole test, all 4 sections. So if a student says, I only want to retake math, or I only want to retake math and English, they'll be able to do that without going through the whole process. This is exciting because when we talk to students and counsel them about retaking, many of them have 1 or 2 areas they want to work on, but they're like terrified that it's going to go down in another area and they're not going to come out ahead. So this, I think, will reduce some of that anxiety and make the idea of retesting more student-friendly, and hopefully encourage us to get above that 43% that we've been hovering at of students who retest. ACT says it will be less expensive to retest single sections. They have not given the cost, but they do say it'll be less expensive. They're also increasing the number of fee waivers that students who qualify for free and reduced lunch can get. Is going to go from 2 to 4. So if you're a student with financial hardship in your family, you now have up to 4 opportunities to retake without any cost. So those are some things that will make it more student-friendly. The other major change is that they will offer online testing at their Saturday national test sites as well. Previously, online testing was only available internationally, or if like a district decided to do it. So this is a new option. Students, they say, will get their scores within 2 days, which is helpful for our college seniors who might want a speedy turnaround for scholarships or college admissions. Students who retest sections instead of the whole test will have to do it online, because they'll put everyone in one room and the test you get will depend on what you are taking. But students who take the full battery will still have the option of paper and pencil if they prefer. Statewide testing will continue to be paper and pencil for the foreseeable future at this point. The third big change, and this one requires a little more explanation, is that ACT will now report what is called a super score for the composite. And what that means is that if a student retakes the exam and they perform higher on a section, the higher score will be used to calculate a composite super score average. If the student performs lower on a section during a retake, they'll still go back and use the previous score for the super score composite. So again, this takes away some of the anxiety. The ACT has noticed 44% retake is not a great national statistic, so hopefully this will make this friendlier to students who are looking to increase their scores. They don't have as much pressure of like, what if I go down in one area and up in another. This is a reversal of what ACT has recommended previously. Prior to this announcement, ACT actually discouraged colleges, even though some colleges used a super score, ACT actually discouraged it because they said that it would artificially inflate student scores. But what they have recently come out with that has fueled this reversal is their research of following the students and their grades their freshman year has shown that actually the super score is more accurately in line with the benchmark averages of pass rates and B's and C's than the non-super score. So they found that their research actually was the opposite, and so they did this reversal. So here's a graphic that just shows how a super score would work if a student took the full battery twice and then retested 2 subjects, April, June, September. You can see that the super score would come from April for reading, June for English and science, September for math, and the student would have a super score of 23, which is higher than the composites of 21 and 22. So, you know, this can only help our students. Colleges will still see the composite of the full test they took, so they'll still see a full profile. They won't only see the super score. So we have to make sure we communicate that to students, but really colleges always say that, you know, they don't hold it against students. If they see one earlier lower score, they like to see the full battery, so the full profile. So I see this as a big positive for our students. We have informed parents of these changes. We had our annual ACT meeting right after this was announced, so we jumped in and changed the slides, and we let the parents know, and as we move forward with our students' preparation, this will be a part of our helping them develop strategies, and our counselors are prepared to talk about this with students individually as they plan their retakes.
This will be great as far as the academic and career planning conversations that really can become more focused on a particular subject area, especially when looking at the overall test that they'll take, for example, this year's juniors on March 3rd. So we're going to be able to, I think, counsel them more effectively. Hopefully students will be more efficient with what they choose to do and retake. And quite honestly, I think that this is going to be helpful, not just for our students, not just for students in the state of Wisconsin, but nationally in terms of helping them perform the best they can on this important assessment. So
I think it's helpful for their mental health too. Like going into these tests, it's such a high stakes environment. So breaking down that pressure just a little bit, it's still important, it's still very significant, but knowing that you have these opportunities to retake, I think can only help our students' well-being.
So we want to take the opportunity to share that with you. A lot of our data remains consistent, and we are super proud of our class of 2019 for the wonderful work that they've done and that they've completed, consistent with our previous classes. But then we also wanted to kind of jump ahead of the board and just forecast what some of these changes would look like, especially if you've heard something or seen something in the media with the changes. So thank you.
A couple of questions. Do we poll students as to why they may, the 57% that don't retake? Do we poll them? I suspect that some population there, the score is acceptable to their next level, but do we know the reasons?
So I would say there's not a formal survey.
Okay.
So I would say that we have our counselors reach out and talk to many of the students that have not retaken or deciding not to retake, and we get a variety of different answers. One of them being, I'm satisfied with where my score is. It meets my academic and career plan. I'm going to this university. I fall well within the range of what this university accepts. My grade point average and my transcript look wonderful. I'm not going to subject myself to taking that again. I don't need to take that again. I think that's probably the most common response that we hear. Other responses certainly can be, I don't want to risk reducing some of these other sections and how I've scored here, so I'm considering that being too big of a risk for them. But we really have, the counseling department really has continued these discussions with our students that are not currently meeting that academic and career plan, so we've got to get you to this range to do it. Also within particular ranges that could be scholarship opportunities, looking at our students with 28s, 29s, really trying to, talk to them about the importance of obtaining that 30. So I don't think it's from a lack of conversations. I think that's well. I just feel that a lot of times it meets what their plan is. So anything you wanted to add on that?
No, that's exactly what I would have said.
Okay. Good.
So next year we'll report out two different numbers, composite and a super score. Is that how it's going?
That's an excellent question. The students we know will report, they will receive a composite for each individual test session, and they will receive a super score at the top of their report, and the colleges that get their report will see a super score at the top. We know that. What we don't know is what our school profile that we presented to you today is going to look like. ACT did offer a webinar with these changes. I watched it. They had a Q&A section. I asked that question twice. I didn't get an answer. So it may be that they're not ready to release that information. I don't know if our graduate report will continue to use composite data from the latest, or if it would use the super score. It sure would be nice if it used the super score, because we do have students who take it again and go down, but I don't know what they're going to do.
So as soon as we find that out, we'll have more information to be able to provide you with that. So it's all very, very new, and we thought it was important to get both our parents and our board in the loop on it. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Elizabeth.
And we'll go on to GHS Advanced Placement Report. I think you're still up.
Yes.
Technical difficulties.
Please stand by.
Here you go. There you go. Okay, so I am also very excited to be able to present you with a report this evening about the state of our advanced placement program. And the reason that I wanted to share this with you is because it's certainly one large component of a district dashboard goal, which is our post-secondary goal. And it's right now one of the primary ways that our students obtain that post-secondary goal. So I just wanted to give you a look in terms of a larger look at what our program looks like, and see if you have any questions regarding that or any additional information that you may like. So, first and foremost, our advanced placement program, it offers college level courses and exams that students take while they're here at Grafton High School. So it allows them to kind of start college with a little bit of an advantage in terms of taking that college level experience while still here at GHS. AP classes can provide students with an advantage in college in really 4 different ways that the College Board lists. The first one being earning college credit while in high school. Earning advanced standing is another one, so the ability to possibly be able to skip introductory courses at the collegiate level. Saving money, saving time, that's attractive to families and students a lot of the time. And then standing out to colleges. And really what that means is seeing that the student has taken a relative amount of rigor when they look at a student's transcript overall. So that's kind of that transcript part of it as far as standing out to colleges. Our offerings here at Grafton High School are really broken into 7 different subject areas. So I wanted you to at least get an idea based on subject what our offerings were. Communication arts, we offer both English language and English literature with composition. In math, we offer statistics, AP Calc AB, and then AP Calc BC. BC is basically an extension of AB. It includes everything AB does and then additional content throughout the course of the year. Biology, chemistry, physics 1, that is an algebra-based physics, the first semester of an algebra-based physics. Environmental science, and those are our science options. In social studies, human geography, which is the freshman course that the board agreed to add 2 years ago. U.S. history, psychology, macro and microeconomics. And then you move into our other 3 categories in the world languages. We have Spanish language and German language and culture. Computer science, we offer both of the available computer science courses, computer science A, computer science principles. And then the arts, we have different options, music theory course, which is 1 semester. And then students have the ability to choose from studio art, a 2D design portfolio, a 3D design portfolio, or if they're interested in drawing. So those are our offerings. Just wanted to give you a snapshot of enrollment. I wanted you to see, okay, so what are the, how many students are enrolled in these classes at Grafton High School? It just gives you an idea. No real scientific behind the coloring. It's just close to 50. 50 or more students. I highlighted that for you just to give you an idea of, I guess, what would be our most popular or courses that are taken by the most students. So you can see that includes Lang and Comp. That's our junior level Com Arts course. Calc AB, biology, environmental science, U.S. history, psychology, macro, micro, and then 47 students enrolled in Spanish language. We do have courses where fewer number of students are enrolled. We try to do whatever we can to run these courses for kids because they're options where kids can obtain that collegiate credit over the course of time. The reason that 2D and 3D art are TBD right now is because students are still determining are they going to submit a portfolio or not throughout the course of the year. So that just gives you a 1-year snapshot. I would say that the numbers in the courses that are the most popular, the ones you're seeing right there are pretty consistent from year to year. Okay? Psychology and the economics are courses that we have lots of students take every year. So how do our students perform? So I'm just giving you a 5-year trend on our AP program. This is something that I know our AP teachers are really proud of. So they've seen the evolution of our program over the last 5 years and even before that. We went from 223 total AP students to 269 students. So we're increasing our number of students that are taking AP courses. We went from administering 498 exams to 623 exams throughout the course of that time. Students with a score of 3 or better, so a student that scores a 3, which is a passing score, 3, 4, or 5, on at least one of their exams, 177 students in 2015, 226 in 2019. And the cool thing about that is we have more students involved taking more exams. And the theory on that is, right, so you think that they wouldn't necessarily perform as well because you're involving more students in higher level, more rigorous courses. But the exact opposite is happening. Matter of fact, when we gave 623 exams in 2019, we had our highest number of students with a 3 or better, 84%. So shout out to our teachers and then to our students for their performance. So we wanted you to see what that 5-year trend looks like in our AP program. Just to give you an exam summary of 2019. So all I gave you here is this number of exams that were 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay? And then I gave you the percentage at each level. So what I want you to see is the reason I highlighted 3, 4, and 5 is that so it means 75% of our students passed our AP exams. So of all of our exams, 75% of those exams are passed. That's a strong number of students passing those exams. So you take that 32, 31, and 12%. That gives you the 75%. Individual student honors is called the AP Scholar Program. I don't know that I've talked about this with the board prior. AP Scholars are individual honors. So we had 74 students that were scholars in 2015. We have 111 in 2019. Now, I know that the columns don't add up from top to bottom. So anybody that's adding those up and they're saying it didn't work, see Topher's already like, Scott, you made like 5 errors there. Actually, our number of, to get to AP Scholar with distinction and then National AP Scholar, those are 7 of the same kids. So that's why we're not adding those additional 7, additional 3, or additional 2 in that last line. Just out of curiosity, I thought you might want to know. So an AP Scholar award is given to students who receive scores of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams in their time at Grafton High School. An AP Scholar with honor is granted to students who receive an average score of at least 3.25 on all their exams taken and scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more exams. Distinction, students who receive an average score of at least 3.5 on all their exams, score 3 or higher on 5 of the exams. Then National AP Scholar, average score of at least 4 on the exams, and had to have a 4 or higher on 8 or more of the exams. So that's really an elite level there. Now the interesting thing is, as of May of 2021, they're going to discontinue the National AP Scholar component of this. And the reason that they're going to do this is they don't need students pushing themselves to any level of being uncomfortable or having any mental health issues by trying to get to that National AP Scholar piece. So they're still going to have the top 3 from what I was reading, but I think the National AP Scholar is what will be going away. So so we just talked about ACT, being aware of students' mental health, AP, College Board doing the same thing. So I thought that was cool for you to see, how many students have been added to AP Scholars over the course of 5 years. Our program overall has been very successful, and the state of Wisconsin, as far as the Wisconsin Advanced Placement Advisory Council, has the Advanced AP Pace Setter Award. It just recognizes schools in Wisconsin for promoting both access to, so we want more kids to take them, and then excellence in our AP courses. So we earned the last 2 years level 1, that's the highest honor, means that 30% of our school or more of all of our students participate in at least one AP exam, and then 70% or more earn scores of 3 or higher. So there are a select level of schools that we join by being a level 1 pace setter school. And then just, I want you to hear from my perspective, the goals of our AP program as part of our post-secondary district dashboard goal moving forward is we'll be looking to, in November, to introduce the AP Capstone Diploma Program. It's just like the capstone courses that we've introduced in some of our other areas. Like, for example, last year we introduced the Advanced Foods and Restaurant Management being the capstone course. With AP, this diploma is a capstone course consisting of AP Seminar and AP Research, really preparing students for that research aspect in college and beyond. So we're going to introduce that. We want to continue to increase student access to AP coursework. So I know this might sound weird, but I want to encourage more students to take their first AP course. I don't need our student that takes 7 to take 8, 9, and 10, okay? I need more of our students that aren't taking them to take our first, or someone that's taking 1 to take a second. That's really where we want to encourage our students to expose themselves to that level of collegiate rigor. We want to increase our student participation on tests. If our kids are taking the class, we want them taking the test. If they're taking the test, we want them passing the test. So we want to increase our participation rates and our pass rates with that. And then last but not least, we're working right now on creating an AP night for families. We haven't done this before, which kind of gives them some of this information. I feel like a lot with some of the information they get in scheduling, it's within each individual department. I want people to know we have a program, and I want that program to feel like it's organized and we're able to move students through that program during their 4 years at Grafton High School. So we're looking at getting that scheduled prior to our scheduling process this year. So those are things that we're working on. I felt like this would be interesting for you to get some information about the program, and I felt like that sharing it with you now would be an appropriate time. So thanks for your time, and I will take any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Any, in addition, or perhaps in addition to AP Seminar, AP Research, and the capstone diploma, any other course offerings that you believe we could benefit from? Specific course offering? So that we're covering.
Yeah, we're covering a lot, right? And and I think that we want to make sure that if we're offering courses, we're going to have students to be able to take them. So are there a couple that potentially we have our eye on within the next number of years? I think that there's one in social studies that as we bring a proposal to you in November that I think is out there. It's not going to be a formal proposal in November, but we're going to bring some different changes ahead. But I think we have a possibility with government down the road as being something that would be interesting to kids, and we have passionate staff members that really feel and know the importance of government. So that's one, I think, but the AP capstone is, I think, the number one focus, moving forward. If there are other ones that come, we'll always review them and we'll work with Diana and Jeff to see if that would be appropriate to add.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, thanks everybody, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. National Student Clearinghouse Report.
So we've talked about this the last couple of summers with the board, and we've yet to officially bring something forward. So as we were looking at bringing forward some of our class 2019 reports, it seemed like an appropriate time to talk about the National Student Clearinghouse and sort of put that out there. So Diana and Laura have put together a presentation for us tonight.
Great. Hey, everybody. Yeah, so Jeff referenced that we did talk about this data a little bit at our board retreat this summer. So we're going to take a look at what is the National Student Clearinghouse. So it's a tracker for high schools to be able to take a look at the answers to these questions for our students that go on to a higher education. So how many of our high school graduates enter college? How do they persist? Do they make it all the way? How long does it take for them to graduate? Do they go to an in-state or an out-of-state college, to a 2-year or 4-year school? And then what colleges do they most likely attend from our school? So the National Clearinghouse, they do not survey students. They work directly with the registrars from the universities. And this is universities that volunteer to be part of this program. So there's about 96% of all public universities and 73% of all private, and those are both 4-year universities, participate. And then you can get a list of all the state universities. So when we perused that, all the ones that we would typically think would be covered are part of the clearinghouse data. So why would we want to look at this? Why do schools look at this? Really, it's to sort of take a look at our preparation efforts. So we just looked at our ACT scores. That's another way to look at our preparation efforts. And then are our kids persisting in college? Did we prepare them? And if they're not persisting, what part do we have in that issue? So how many of our high school graduates enroll in college? So this chart is immediate fall after graduation. So typically most kids who decide to enter a university of 2 or 4-year, which this includes any, do that right away after they graduate. So we're hovering right around 78% typically as a trend. These slides are some of the ones that we looked at this summer, so just reminding us about the persistence piece. So if you take a look at the graduating class of 2013-14 in green, then in orange, how many of those students persisted and continued on, and that goes on through those 5 years. Typically, the best amount is right away. If they persist to the 2nd year, they're more likely to continue. Then you see then at 4-year and 5-year, they start to graduate. So you can see that for every year, so this is the 2014-15 class, hovering around that same amount. We don't, so you'll see there is a dip from the percent that actually graduate or attend that first year to the number that persist, or the percentage that persist. And it's pretty similar, depending on how many went the very first year. So this is the most recent. I mean, obviously we don't have the last year because we don't know yet, but in 16-17, those are the students that we can see about 65% persisting on to the second year. And then we'll get data after that from Clearinghouse to be able to track that.
So is it, I'm sorry, ours isn't color, we're saving money on color, which I like.
No. So if you're going to ask me a question, I might
So it's 65% persistent, but then it looks like the bottom one is graduated?
Yes.
So in that second year, is that right? So it's like 72, 75% out of that 81%? Is that what that basically means? Just so the board.
On this slide?
Yeah.
Yes, so that 7% graduated
Yes.
in the 17-18. And then there's 65.2% that persisted, and 9.3 it looks like that actually no longer enrolled.
So this represents freshman and sophomore year for them?
Yes.
Is that what that is?
So the green is always their freshman year at college or university.
So that's 60, just so I understand, 65% of the original
Yep.
79.1%.
Yep.
Okay.
And we're pretty much,
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yep.
but it would be, you would have to include the 7% who graduated.
Correct.
because
Right.
they wouldn't persist.
Correct.
And that's what's always unique, is you always have a small sliver that graduate in that first year, but we assume that's probably a 2-year, and kids are going in with credits.
correct.
So they're getting associates pretty quickly, but yeah, so it's interesting to see that.
Yeah, it's almost better to just look at like how far the orange dips from the green, because then it doesn't seem like as big of a number versus looking at the number.
The 2.1 that graduated in 16 and 17 isn't repeated in the 2017-18.
That's right.
Right.
So after 2 years, 9.1% have graduated.
Yes. That's how I read it.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
all.
Yeah.
But no, 'cause looking at the other one, then you would have, like at the year before, or what year is that? That's the 2013. If I added up like 51.2 plus the 35 plus the 30, you know, like, how could I have had, what is that, 12.7% did not.
Which one are you looking at?
Oh, I was looking at class of 2013.
Mhm.
Going back to that one. So, what? I'm just trying to figure out, like, based on his question, the class of 2013, they entered, 77%
Yes.
entered at the beginning. Are we saying that of that 77%, that if I add up all the purple ones, that's percentage that graduated?
No, not
Purple,
the
it's not. Well, see,
Oh.
so it's 77%, so then you would add the 73.2%, which Diana's point of just like looking at the orange, how close is the orange to the green?
Right.
Is probably a good tell, because it's
Right.
hard to see exactly. It looks like it's 1.4% that are
I
graduated.
think it is 1.4.
And there's something in the green that I can't see, but it must be like,
New to college.
yeah, that's,
So kids that entered second year, not
Right.
first
so you have
year.
that 2.8 that look like that are in red that no longer are enrolled. So 2.8 stopped after their freshman year, 1.4% graduated for the 2013 year. And that 1.4 turns into 3.3 because there's more kids that graduated the next year, and that turns into 35.2 the next year because that's how many, out of that percentage, 35% of them graduated. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
So I just can't add up all the bottom numbers, right? It's, each year it's based off the year before?
Rolls over, like.
Okay, but it's not cumulative.
Well, I think it's gotta be
Well, 'cause if I add up all of
100%,
these-
100%.
This is 90.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not human.
Yeah.
Well,
If I add this up, it would be 91, and 91 of that did not. Or did they? I don't think 91 could have, because that many dropped out. or did not go on.
Which column do you think doesn't add up to 100?
Well, I think if you add up from top to bottom, it equals 100. But if I look at, like, if I just wanted to say, of our,
They're hard to read columns, so I'm.
right, if
giving
I wanted to
myself
say
a
like,
break,
oh,
so-
of the kids who graduated
Yes.
Grafton High School in 2013 and
Yep.
went off to college,
Yep.
if I wanted to know like what percent after 5 years had actually graduated college.
That's coming.
Yep, that's the next slide.
Oh, okay. The next one.
So how long does it take them to get their degrees? Okay, so this is a class of 2011 and 12, so we do have some students that have graduated in 2 or 3 years. But then our next big bump, between 25 and 29% complete their degree within 4 years, and then we got another 18% that complete it in 5 years, and then in between 3 and 9% that take 6 years to complete a degree. So overall, we have between 56 and 58% of students that actually start and finish their degree within 6 years. Fairly good amount. Okay. Another one of the questions that the Clearinghouse answers is, do our students stay in-state or do they go out of state for their post-secondary schooling? So of the 78% of the Grafton students, 65% stay within the state and about 13% go out of state. And these numbers are fairly stable. When we look at state averages, the state average of students staying in state versus leaving Wisconsin, a little less than 50% of students stay within the state, and the percentage of students on average leaving Wisconsin is generally in the single digits. Grafton has a somewhat higher percentage of students attending out-of-state colleges than state average. Do our students attend a 2- or a 4-year school? 62% of our Grafton graduates attend a 4-year school, and about 16%, at least for the graduating class of 2018, attend a 2-year school. And that trend is fairly stable. And compared to the state average, Grafton's percentage of students attending a 2-year program is pretty much in line with what the state average is, but we have a significantly higher percentage of students that go on to a 4-year school. And like Diana had mentioned, these are the most popularly attended colleges and universities within Wisconsin. Milwaukee, Madison, MATC, Whitewater. These are all the schools that are participating in the Clearinghouse data collection.
And these are the ones our students choose.
So how does this help us here at Grafton High School? Of course, we're concerned about the students that were kind of in that yellow zone, the ones that are not persisting on to college or to the next year. So our counseling department is reviewing this data and connecting it to our academic and career planning. Are we missing something? Looking at what can we do to get more information about why kids are not persisting? Perhaps doing a survey with our own students to find out why. Are they feeling like they weren't academically prepared? Is it more of a social, emotional, life skills kind of a thing that they're not ready for? Is it a financial reason why they're not persisting? So that's something that we're looking into. And then the counseling department and the school sites are also exploring the use of the social emotional screener to determine areas of mental health need that we might have, and then planning some next steps there. Questions?
I'm always just concerned, from Scott's presentation, that we have 60-some-odd% of our kids who go on to a 4-year school, and yet when we look at their ACT scores, only like 24% would be proficient, would be prepared to take what I would consider like freshman level, like a math class, an English, a science, and a social studies class. Because if we look at the ACT, like prepared in all areas to get a B or a C, you're 75% likely to get a C. I would be nervous if my child was going to a 4-year school and didn't have a score. It's like you scored below that, so we're not really sure that you could get a C in that, in a freshman level biology or, a science or a math.
And that could be one of the survey questions too. How well did you feel prepared? Is there a subject that you didn't feel prepared well enough in, or did you feel confident in other areas?
I think that's part of our pathway work too, as we're working with our counseling team.
to identify, particularly working with MATC, since they are one of our top choices for our students, and to identify not only AP, but what are pathways of interest, and then I know we've had some discussions in smaller groups right now around at each end of each pathway, there is that opportunity for that post-secondary piece, whether it's AP or something else. So I know the first one that we're really looking at is in that medical area to leverage our PLTW and the number of students that are interested in nursing. So that, I feel like that could play into it. That's that whole ACP piece, which is why we pull the counselors into the work. But yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. It's, you know, there's a connection to the ACT scores and a sort of a little bit of a wondering there.
Our dashboard will help us with that as well, because it goes back down to that third grade reading, right? It really does. That's how you get good test scores, is you have great elementary schools. So one of the things that we just did during parent-teacher conferences is they had, each student got a sheet that sort of laid out where they were on their forward exam, and then where that would put them. And so it's letting parents know in a concrete way, here are the strategies the teacher's doing, these are things parents could be doing at home. That's new for us this year. I know that's resulted in some extra meetings from those parent-teacher conferences, and parents seeing, not going into Skyward and looking at, actually getting something, that piece of paper saying this is where your child would be if they were their predicted score in that way. So having an urgency from staff and students and parents, even at the elementary level, will help raise that 42% being college ready in all 4 content areas in the future that goes with that.
And I'll just say, having two boys gone through the Grafton School District, I mean, both of them, I think, were well prepared. Their grade points went up in college. So, I mean, you know, is it a true indicator? Because I do think they were prepared based on where they ended up after graduating. Like I said, they both did well here, but they did even better at college. So.
And Mary Helen would have shared that with her kids as well, like the successes that they're having just in the last 2 years as well. I mean, so you're right, there's definitely those stories that we're seeing our students succeed and be successful. This is one indicator that they look at. One thing that we're looking at, National Student Clearinghouse, the difficult thing with that is it takes so long to see initiatives that you're trying to actually see if there's fruition to it. But it's data that we are looking at and having those discussions with and changing our approach in a variety of ways.
So I guess if you start with the end in mind, what are we trying to do? I mean, at the end of the day, we say, how does this data help? The counseling department is asked to review the data and connect to ACP. What do we want? Because as I look at the data, I can see that, and if I assume that each bar is 100%, so it's a year unto itself, for all classes presented in the data that you provided that have at least 4 years of worth of data, in 2013 that persistence, the lack of persistence in the yellow was 10.3. In 2014 that jumped to 20.3. And then those that had 3 years worth of data was 8.0, 13.9, and 14.5. So in every instance, trending in the wrong direction. But is that alarming to us or not? I mean, is part of this exercise, not everybody should be going to college.
So if you say, what's the end goal? The end goal is help students make sure they're making the right choices they leave. And that's where academic and career planning, which is something that we have work to do. One of the things that we just talked about today was the scope and sequence, and making sure we have that developed and in place for our kids, because you know you are seeing more of a focus on, is 4-year college for everyone? No, 2-year college is great. I mean, kids getting a certification, getting out workforce, we're seeing a shortage in that area, but 2-year college isn't for everyone either, right? I mean, like this, so there's no one size fits all. What we don't want is we don't want students who are leaving, going to school, and 5 years later, 50% of them either are still in school or 50% of them have dropped out of school and still have college debt, and then don't have that degree which can help them move up a ladder in whatever field they are, whether that's certification, whether college degree, whatever it may be. So it is helping students have a better understanding of what is my goal as we look at our pathways that we're developing with curriculum, making sure the students are getting experiences, experiential learning, so they aren't leaving here thinking, I want to be an engineer, but they've had no engineering classes. And they get into college and they're like, oh my gosh, this would be the pits to do this. And I just wasted a year, and however much money that is. I went to MSOE, and I'm smart enough to do it, or I work hard enough to do it, but it's not what I love to do. So having some of those pathways for kids that go with it is really a key, and that goes all the way from biomedical engineering to, you know, tech ed classes of kids taking welding here in school to see what I really enjoy doing that, making some really good money, but is that what I want to do the rest of my life? Yes or no, no matter what. So is it alarming? I don't know if it's alarming because it's the data, but it's something that we're looking at to see, well, how can we help kids make better choices, and that's something that we're working on.
So is there a time frame for Bullet 2 and 3? How does this data help?
The social emotional screener, we are looking at what we're planning this year so that we would implement it next year. So yes, there's a time frame on that.
What grades would you be implementing that for?
That is something we're also talking about, perhaps like starting out with one grade level per, like one for elementary, one for middle, one for high school. And then look at how those results roll out, what we're going to do with it, and then maybe add on a second year, or second grade level next year.
And then the second bullet, there's timeline that established.
Actually, at our next Monday at our professional development, our counselors are going to be taking a look at that, looking at the scope and sequence. What have we accomplished? We looked at it about a year ago and kind of color-coded it. What are we doing well? What are we in the works? We haven't even started. And so on Monday, we're going to look at how that has shifted and what we need to do going forward.
We're also meeting this week to start to talk about, or next week, after that, to talk about pathways and to look at what's currently in the works with MATC and where we're at with that planning along the medical pathway that we talked about. Scott and I met multiple times this summer with MATC. And then thinking about what that looks like as our starting point.
Thank you.
And it's making sure kids understand that even if I'm going to a 4-year school and MIDC isn't in my career pathway, taking a class there, having that credit there that may transfer to another university is still a valuable experience that can go along in that way. So it isn't just, oh, MIDC is only for 2-year kids, if I'm going to a 4-year college, and that doesn't matter to me, and I should only be taking AP. That isn't true. But it's refining that and getting more information out like that as well. And they're so close to us, it's easy to make partnerships. So we use some things, Cordia, UW Green Bay, UW Oshkosh, UW Whitewater. We have other options for kids as well that goes with it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. All right, 2020 health, dental, and vision insurance renewal tool.
You are my captive audience for the next 4 agenda items. We'll start with the benefits insurance renewal for 2020. And just to give some background, we really kind of started this process back in July of 2018, when at a finance committee we looked at various options we would have if we had a difficult insurance renewal. Unfortunately, in 2018, leading up to the 2018 renewal, that was a fairly easy renewal. We had a 2% increase in our premium. However, leading up into the 2020 renewal, we knew we were going to have some challenges. In July, we met again to look at what different levers we could pull to deal with a challenging renewal. In September, we did get a over 19% renewal from Humana. At that point, we had a budget that was only put forth that would handle a 10% renewal. So we could figure out how to take care of the other 9.22%. So, we put our business out to market to other carriers to see if we could get better renewal rates. A health insurance renewal committee was formed and to review possible changes that we could make, different levers to pull, some of which had been discussed at finance committee meetings. And I do want to thank the time spent by the various staff members from all of our buildings, as well as from different employee groups that met at both those meetings and also took time to interact with their colleagues and bring their feedback back to that second meeting, as well as members of the Finance Committee that were there as well. So we reviewed those potential changes. We collected, the members of the committee collected feedback from staff, brought it back to share at that second meeting. In addition, at that second meeting, we found out that we had some other options in terms of our renewal. Humana came down, I think it was to 16.7. WEA had a 13.45% renewal. We also had WCA Group Health Trust at, I believe it was about 11.5%. The WEA had a second year rate cap of 10.5%, which was very appealing to members of the Health Insurance Renewal Committee. So we moved forward with the idea that WEA would be the recommended carrier based on that 13.45 renewal, as well as the 10.5 second year rate cap. But we still needed changes. We were still above that 10% renewal. We still needed changes to get the budget back in line. Some options were sent to the Finance Committee to consider. So those options were as follows. So we increased the high deductible health plan, the deductible for the high deductible health plan from 2,000 single, 4,000 family, up 150 and 300 each. We decreased the district contribution from 92% to 91% of the high deductible premium. We also reduced the cash benefit for weighted insurance by $300. Now those put our budget roughly back in line. But we also, the Finance Committee also recommended changes to the PPO plan. While this would not affect the budget, it would do two things. It would make the PPO plan more consumer driven, and it would also keep the premium, the employee portion of the premium of the PPO plan from becoming so expensive that it might not make sense for many people to choose it as an option, as it was growing to be within nearly about $500 of the maximum out of pocket you could pay if you picked the high deductible health plan. And those changes to the PPO plan were, as listed here, increasing that deductible from $500, $1,000 to $750 to $1,250, increasing urgent care copay from $25 to $50, specialist copays from $10 to $50, and increasing prescription drug copays from $5.50, $30 to $5.20, $40. The results of those changes are as follows. So your the employee impact, and this is just the premium for your high deductible health plan single, it's an extra $162 a year, or $7 a paycheck. For the family plan on the high deductible or HSA plan, goes up $367 or $15 a paycheck. For the PPO single, it's $147 per year. PPO family, $332 per year. Change in the cash benefit, that's a drop of $300. The committee and both the Health Insurance Renewal Committee and the Finance Committee were careful to make sure that we weren't going to incentivize leaving the cash benefit option and moving on to insurance. If you consider that someone is saying, well, first of all, if you're so young you could be in an insurance plan, you're not going to leave. But those with a spouse that has a plan that they can be on, they have that option. They're going to do the math. And they're going to take a look at the price, the cost of being on their spouse's insurance, minus what they get from help with the cash benefit. If that is less than the cost of being on our insurance, they're going to pick the spouse's plan, take the cash benefit. You can see that people in the family plan who would have a spouse potentially would have an insurance option. Those amounts are going up more annually than the cash benefit is dropping. In essence, cash benefit looks a little bit better in 2020 than it does for 2019, which doesn't mean someone might not change. We don't know what might happen with a spouse's insurance. Someone could lose their job, someone's insurance could have a difficult renewal. Those are things we don't know and things we can't control. But this would be the effect on employees who are on these various different plans. Again, this is just the premium. Some people might have increased costs because of deductibles or increased co-pays. So that's out there as well. That's different for everyone. Other insurance renewals. Dental came in at a 0% increase. Late last week, we still had 5% built into the budget. But I heard late last week, got it confirmed, dental will be flat. So we did adjust that dental premium, that dental budget as of today. So that's refreshed from the Finance Committee meeting. So that drops, that was moved, the savings, which was roughly, I think I said about $9,400, that was moved into health insurance. One concern that exists for health insurance is that our high deductible plan is a little bit more expensive than our PPO plan. When I say expensive, I'm referring to district costs, right? If someone were to shift from PPO family plan or the high deductible plan, it costs the district $500 extra. People shift over, that could be, that's an unknown, right? It's an unknown cost, so that acts, moving that over acts as kind of our contingency. Life insurance had a 12.7% premium increase. Again, that's not a big number to begin with anyway, so that isn't horribly impactful. We already knew about that leading into, we knew this renewal number back in September. During the budget review, we were able to find out, or I found, that some of our health insurance costs had been, through the process of uploading the budget, had been shifted into the life insurance costs instead of health insurance. That correction was made. So when you compare the Finance Committee budget by object and tonight's, you'll see that life insurance, there's a portion of that that shifted into health, as well as dental that shifted into health. Okay, but so the health was put in the right place, and it all basically adds up. Long-term disability, also a district insurance. We pay for that. That's a flat renewal. Vision, on your memo, I have 6%. I found out this morning that Humana was willing to bring it down to 3% for our renewal this year. This is not paid for by the district. It's voluntary. Employees pay that cost. So instead of having a 3% renewal instead of 6, is better off for our employees. And then short-term disability, also an optional insurance that employees can purchase. That is a flat renewal. Any questions on any of the renewals? We will be having meetings Wednesday and Thursday at all the buildings for information for open enrollment, which begins on November 1st.
Any questions for Topher?
And then that open enrollment closes at the end of November, correct?
We're going to have to make an adjustment to that. So I'm talking with Horton. They suggest having a 2-week open enrollment period because everyone is going to be shifting to a new plan and need to get new cards. We are going to need to end that earlier so that everyone can get their cards by January 1st. So we'll be communicating that to staff tomorrow and as part of our meetings that we'll be having Wednesday and Thursday, that will be an accelerated process. I don't anticipate that would cause a problem. I don't think people actually need the whole month to do it. They need a deadline so they can actually sit down and go through the process of taking care of it.
Well, I'd like to thank Topher and also the folks on the Health Insurance Renewal Committee for their work in bringing this in line and their continued considerations for ensuring that we have a strong offering of benefits for all of our employees at a reasonable cost to the district and to the taxpayer, and that we're moving in a direction that continues to increase participation by the employees. That was the essence of Act 10. This plan and program does that, so it accomplishes all three of those elements: a strong benefit package at a reasonable cost to the employees while moving the district closer to less costs overall. So thank you very much. It was not an easy task in light of the number of carriers that you went out to and the iterations that were considered through the course of the meetings. Then, if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to adopt the recommendations that are included in this October 28th minute regarding the change to WEA Trust, the changes in plan design, both for the high deductible health plan and the PPO plan, as well as the district defined contribution amounts as presented. So moved. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? And it passes. Thank you. Next.
All right, so this will be the 8th time that we take a look at the 2019-2020 budget, whether it's a full board meeting or a finance committee meeting, or an annual meeting, the many various meetings that we've had, starting in January, to build up to tonight, our final opportunity to take a look at the budget and get it approved along with our levy certification. We reviewed this information at the Finance Committee. Kind of the big theme is there weren't a whole lot of changes from what we knew in August and presented at the annual meeting in September. Our 3-year membership stayed, did not change from what we were projecting, 1,979. Our private school, private and special ed choice exemption, we had anticipated it would be $250,000. It was about $24,000 higher, primarily because of the 2 additional students in the special needs scholarship program that cost roughly $12,000 or so per student. Those 2 extra students did quite a big part of why instead of $250 we were at $274. The final revenue limit was increased about $25,000. Equalization aid went up about $1,000, which out of $5.23 million is a very small amount. So our July aid estimate, very close to what our October 15th certified aid was. Our all fund tax levy was about $33,000 higher than what our all fund tax levy was at the annual meeting. Our property values increased 5.38% instead of our estimated 5.2%. Those 2 things coming together mean our mill rate did not change from our annual meeting. It comes in at $10.21. Outside the mill rate and revenue limit, we also did have final open enrollment budgets that came in. So we had an increase in open enroll out expense of about $45,000 compared to what we were estimating, and an increase in our open enrollment in revenue of a little over $4,000 compared to what we had been estimating at the annual meeting. So as an overview of our revenues, see property taxes, going up, the Fund 10 property taxes increasing almost $6 million. However, two big reasons for that: equalization aid dropping, much of which we had anticipated, and you'll see a little bit more about that later with our debt levy decreasing to absorb some of that. But another big part of the property tax, Fund 10 property tax increase, is the fact that we have returned about $800,000 of tax authority that had been put in Fund 41 back into Fund 10 and we are no longer budgeting to spend fund balance down in its place. Then, as you can see, as I mentioned, there's the equalization aid. We have a drop. A lot of this is due to increased debt payments. We knew anytime we increase costs there, that costs us state aid. We were prepared for this, and you'll see later that our debt levy does decrease to absorb some of this increase. Open enrollment, that's the piece I mentioned earlier, that does decrease from last year, the revenue from open enrollment. And per pupil aid, that increases due to the increase in the dollar amount per pupil in this year's state budget. That will stay the same next year. There will be no increase next year in the per pupil amount. And then in the all other category, those revenues, those are various adjustments along the line. So you see that total increase of $831,000. In reality, a better comparison is to say it's about $31,000 higher. Again, because at $800,000, we use fund balance for that. It wasn't revenue that was truly available, and we said to use that $800,000 in Fund 41. For expenditures, you can see salaries, benefits increasing. Obviously, we had a challenging renewal with benefits. Salaries, we gave raises to employees. In purchase services, you see that dropping about $200,000. Much of that related to the fact that we don't have that same dollar amount set like we did last year for classroom upgrades. Transfers out is dropping, and this in the transfers out category, you have our transfer to Fund 27, as well as 46. We're still transferring $130,000 to Fund 46 this year. But the transfer to Fund 27 is dropping in large part because the state is reimbursing us for last year's costs at a higher percentage. It's up to about 26% from 24.5% the year before. The additional revenue, that lowers our transfers out cost in Fund 10. Then we have some increases in supply and equipment, and in the other category that is primarily related to our insurance, property and workers' comp insurance renewals. Again, $31,000 increase from last year. This is that membership projection. Again, this came right on target with what we were expecting. And then future budget projections are changed very little. I believe we had been projecting 2021 to be 1953, or no, I think it was 1955, then the next year dropping down to 1939. So that our future year projections do not change all that much. But they do go down over time because of some larger senior classes, I shouldn't say senior, but larger high school classes that are in the pipeline to graduate. Eventually our projection, when you see it, you'll see it taper off and kind of level out a little bit as those classes are replaced with smaller classes that are easier to replace. I mentioned open enrollment. So earlier, open enrollment in, we have less revenue coming in because we have less students. If we were stable in that area, we would have more money coming in because that amount per student goes up each year. But we have, I mentioned it before with membership, but we also have some larger classes that have been graduating over the past few years that are open enrolled in. We're not replacing them as quickly because we are only taking enough students to fill classes that have openings, but we're not forcing ourselves to add teachers. So the number of kids we're taking in, we're not replacing some larger high school classes that are graduating. So this trend could continue for a couple of years before leveling out. The open enroll out piece, some of that is due to the fact that the amount that we pay out to other districts for open enroll out is increasing, but we also saw an increase in participation in the open enroll out. Number of students has increased, and so our expenditures are increasing. And then we have, obviously this levels out, the net revenue has been decreasing over a number of years. And we will continue to budget for this, projecting out so that we're prepared for when actual numbers do come in October, so that we're not too surprised. In the private school choice expenditure, I mentioned this earlier, this is an exemption. No matter how high this gets, this doesn't affect our budget. This is an expense, but then it's added to our tax levy. So it becomes part of the revenue limit. So it doesn't affect our budget per se, the bottom line of it, but it does affect our debt levy. The $274,000 that we're levying this year amounts to 15 cents of our $10.21 mill rate. So we have our exact revenue limits now that we have October numbers, 21.6 million revenue limit overall. We take out the computer aid, personal property aid, certified state aid. We take that out, and we are left with our revenue limit authority of $16,241,000. Now, some of that gets put into the Fund 38 debt levy. That's debt within our revenue limit. That decreases from earlier because we refunded that debt, so we have a lower payment now. So we are able to put some of that in Fund 10. We have our regular Fund 41 levy of $80,000. And then you can see the Fund 39 debt levy that exists outside the revenue limit of that $2.5 million. And that's a decrease from last year. It was up around 2.9 million, so a decrease of roughly $400,000 or so in that levy. That helps make up for that decrease in state aid. So our all fund tax levy, $18,774,000. That is a 1.8% increase from last year. So last 3 years, taking a look at it, fairly stable all fund tax levy, not too much change. You can see our equalized values increasing steadily, including a 5.4% increase this year. When we take our all fund tax levy and apply it against equalized property values, then we come to our mill rate of $10.21. This is a decrease of 36 cents from last year. So we've seen a decrease of over $1 over the past 2 years in our mill rate. So what does that mean for the taxes that are applied against equalized property value? For every $100,000 of equalized property value, there would be a decrease in the school-related tax of $36. And then you can see the different amounts for $300,000 and $500,000. The decrease in the school-related tax on equalized property values. Any questions?
The 8 times the charm. You mentioned earlier about some pieces of expenditures moving, that's in the by object.
Yes, in the by object. So if you were to put the finance committee piece next to the current one, you would see that the life insurance dropped by $25,000. And that was moved into the health insurance piece where it should have been. And then you'll see that the dental dropped as well, and that's moved into health insurance. And there's a little bit of, with the dental renewal, a little bit of savings in Fund 27 as well, as much of our staff is there. So that transfer over dropped a little bit, transfer to Fund 27 dropped a little bit as well.
Are those coding errors, or are they just?
It's basically, it's called a work file. You use it from an Excel spreadsheet, and it pulls data from other sheets, and then you can save it as a special file that you can upload into Skype. And there was an error in that upload. Maybe it makes it sound like it's not my fault. But it was actually my fault. I was pulling from the wrong cell in that spreadsheet. So, but that's fixed.
Okay, all right. Those, the only changes, the significant changes in the by object.
Yes.
Any additional questions? If not, then I believe you need a motion. We need a motion to adopt the the final budget by object,
Yes.
the final adopted budget, the final tax levy and mill rate summary, the final revenue limit calculation, and the certification of state aid as of October 15th. So moved. Any further discussion? None, all those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Topher, thank you very much. It's, as always, well done and thoroughly presented. Appreciate that from one recovering CPA to another. All right, next is the first quarter budget report.
Yeah, so just as the budget, it's maybe 15, 20 seconds old, right? You're probably wondering how it's doing so far. So we're actually about to hit that 4-month part. At the end of this month, we'll be 4 months into our budget. We're going to take a look at the first 3 months in our first quarter budget report.
Is it still in presentation?
It's not in presentation, so it would be just that, its own file. There's actually very little to report. Everything, for the most part, seems to be tracking along with how things were going last year. With the exceptions, this is going to be something we probably talk about the rest of the year. We talked about it all last year too. That capital object line includes expenditures on the water main break. So we had expenditures in there. We were reimbursed eventually for those, but you can see where some of those expenditures didn't hit until much later in the year. Normally, capital objects budget is going to be spent pretty heavily early on. We buy our Chromebooks, we buy equipment for tech ed, all those pieces. We buy them at the beginning of the year so that we can use them during the year. But now we're comparing it right now to a budget that absorbed some of the expenditures, well, just all the expenditures from the damage from the water main break. And those expenses moved out beyond that first quarter. So it looks like, well, it is. Last year we hadn't even spent half of that, but that's because we were still getting bills from that water main break. So it's really now, in 1920, running like you would expect that to run. And taking a look at the other budget categories, they're running in line with what we would expect.
What is non-capital objects? Refresh my memory, because that seems to be running a bit behind relative to a comparable budget amount.
Yeah, those would be supplies. So those are your classroom budgets primarily. So those would be anything that you're not going to capitalize. So it could be computer supplies, like cords and mice, things like that, but also it's a lot of the consumables that get used by students in the classroom.
Any reason why through the first quarter would be 90,000 better than last year through the first quarter?
I don't know, but that's a number that doesn't worry me because it's running behind.
I know it's, I guess my question, is it purely savings? I mean, last year start up with new buildings, did we have more supplies because?
Well, people may have spent it earlier, right, because maybe they were having to get new stuff in. They moved, the new stuff wasn't any good, so there could have been earlier purchases to make up for moving into a new classroom and getting new stuff for that classroom.
Okay, and then on the capital objects, $55,000 left, are we going to maintain that budget line?
Yes.
Okay.
Other objects, what were those? Because I noticed we've done 69.3 compared to 42.6 last year.
Yeah. So other objects would be things such as dues. So when someone joins an organization, whether it's the superintendent group or whether it's WASB, those dues come out of there. What we've done is, you can see the budget is higher. So there have been, as we go through each year trying to make the budget more what we want it to be, there have been years in the past where some of those some of those fees were put into, say, the purchase services. Right? So we've kind of moved them into the proper account, and those are spent earlier. You pay your dues for the year earlier. So as we're accounting for, that's accounting for a much larger percentage of that overall budget. You're going to spend it earlier than you otherwise would.
Any other questions? Thanks, Topher. The tax and revenue anticipation notes.
Yes, there's, every year, just about every year, we need to borrow money sometimes it's November, sometimes it's December, occasionally it can be later. We borrow money to make payroll because a large majority of our revenue comes in the form of property taxes, which we don't start getting until January. So in order to make payroll in the late fall, early winter, we do need to borrow funds short term. The term we have before us tonight is, for all intents and purposes, the same as last year. It will be 3.5%. We are able to take it out when we need it, pay it back immediately, so there's no prepayment penalty. We have prepayment privileges, if you will. So we're able to pay that back as soon as those tax revenues come in January. So we did use it last year, I think, to the tune of about $8,700 in interest costs last year. And that cost will vary depending on how much we need to tap that line. It used to be a line of credit. It acts like a line of credit, but it's a tax revenue anticipation note. The only maybe interesting piece of this was the juggling of various forms from the bank. We did, and I believe everybody has the new forms.
I think I've met everybody.
Yeah, they were, the bank had given us 222 forms, and as we were going back and forth with them over some of the pieces that didn't seem like they belonged, they did get us the proper forms. So they are, what is the?
194.
194. So you have form 194 instead of form, I think it was 222 earlier. Which is the 222 is the form usually used for borrowing short-term on the capital. So we would be looking at recommending that we do approve this, take a resolution to enter into this agreement with Fort Washington State Bank so that we can make payroll.
Approve the resolution.
Here's a recommendation on his memo to the board on that short-term borrowing. And that one there, he has the recommendation. Approve the resolution for school district tax and revenue anticipation notes not to exceed $5 million for the funding of the operations of the district during the 2019-20 fiscal year.
And that resolution remains the same, we will do this. Oh, okay, so the memo is the forms behind it.
Yes, correct. Form.
Yep, that's right. Yep, that's good.
All right, so I look for a motion to approve that resolution.
Someone.
Second.
Any further questions? All those in favor of the motion, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Third Friday count update.
Yes, so the next two items, and Laura will walk us through both third Friday count and our open enrollment report, updating us where we are.
Okay, third Friday head count is, just to kind of refresh your memory, all of our students within the district that are enrolled, plus any open enrolled in students. So attaches the current historical review of our student count by grade level. Overall, there are 2,039 students enrolled, which is just 5 less students than what we had projected for the 2019-20 school year. We have this one right here, and then there's this one right here. And the second one had by building and by grade level. So this is information only. Questions? All right. Then moving on to open enrollment report. Our district had a total of 35 new open enrolled-in students for this school year, which is an increase of 14 students over last year. And we had a total of 36 new students open enrolled out of the district for 2019-20. Although over the past 3 years, on average, we've had about 29 new students open enrolled out of the district. If you take a look at the backside here, there's a little bit of an anomaly. It looks like we had 12 students that open enrolled out to Northern Ozaki, which is more than what it has been in recent history. But when we took a look at that, 7 of those 12 kids were actually open enrolled to the virtual academy and not to the brick and mortar schools there. So for the 2019-20 school year, we had 88 seats available for new open enrolled in students, and 35 of those seats were filled. So the district has a total of 164 open enrolled in students and a total of 111 open enrolled out, for a net increase of 53 students. Question?
Do you keep track of how many open seats? So if in 2019-20, we have 35 that were filled, it's 88 open. So how many were open in all the previous years? What's our fill?
I would have to look at that.
It's my understanding that in the budgetary discussion, we have been more purposeful, planful, with the available seats, so as not to have a negative impact on staff. So do we see that trend going out by this data that will be okay?
We could run the fill
I'm
rate.
not sure whether
It's something that's approved by the board each year. You're approving open enrollment seats. So,
maybe good just to add that as well.
sure. Fill rate.
So the amount available versus the amount that actually are filled.
Yeah, because this is listing the fill.
Yes.
Because I'm assuming it would be in our best interest to get as close to the available as possible.
Correct.
We're going to maximize our revenue.
We've had 25 open enrolled for seniors this year at the high school. And that's a pretty big class getting replaced by a pretty small class at the high school, 139 in 8th grade. Obviously, we'll have a bunch of open enrolled, hopefully freshmen. Does that gap kind of need to be filled from a staffing standpoint? We risk, because that's a 12th grade's 189, they're graduating. 8th grade's only 139. Do you have any risk there of negative staff?
So if you look at the previous page where it says the number of students, not the previous page, but the third Friday count. Yeah. So if you look at the second page, where it'll say like 8th to 9th grade, you usually do see a jump of about 23 students. So there's a number of parochial students, whether it's St. Joe's, St. Paul's, or maybe who do come in that freshman year, as well as maybe some open enrollment seats that we open up. So there is some, you can see over time that it's 22, it's 23, that year was 8 because there's 179, 187, biggest freshman class we've had in the last 6 years. 152, 184, so it's 20 to 30 students that were coming in during that time. the high school FTE is based on scheduling, and so if there aren't as many people signing up for blank, then that impacts that FTE in that department. So it isn't as, it's not as simple as it is at maybe the elementary or the middle, where we know that they're locked in, that's what they're going to have, because they have so many electives that go with it.
Jerry, is that good? Any additional questions? All right, thank you very much. Youth Apprentice Consortium Agreement.
Yes, each year we sign an agreement for the youth apprenticeship agreement, and the front page sort of goes up what the youth apprenticeship agreement is itself, and on the back it's basically a $3,500 fee that we pay as part of the consortium that we work through Port Washington. John Higgins is our coordinator of this, and it allows our students to be placed at various businesses in our areas. We talk about having students be college and career ready as they leave, and having these life touches before they leave high school. This consortium fee allows us to be able to offer these opportunities for these students. So each year we need board approval to be able to be involved in this consortium.
So I will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution regarding the Zaki Youth Apprenticeship 6630 agreement.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Just a quick question. So is this a smaller year compared to the 2-year previous?
I asked that same question.
Scott has the answer, actually. You talked with Councilman Department.
So I spoke with Barry Johnson, who's indicated that, yes, there were a few number of students that were, interested in this particular program this year. There are 2 that are still awaiting placements, which would bring that more in line with where they are in the second year program. We did not express any concerns or anything else with that, so, but yes, the number is small.
And yes, that caught my eye, because I'd like to see more kids involved in this. So we'd like to see more touches, which is why it led to discussion in our office to sort of make sure everyone's looking at it, and are we sharing, how are we sharing the information, and are we making it as easy as possible for kids to be involved with this? What does that look like?
So then the 2 not placed, it's just there's not a business for it.
Correct. Yep. They are still working on placement.
Our fee is the same as last year.
It's a little less because the maximum amount is $4,000. So when you get to, so you can see we have $700 and $500 a student. If you get over, the more students that for $4,000, then they're, what's that?
Over 8.
Yeah, yep, yeah, I wasn't thinking of a number, I was thinking of the next thing.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, but over 8. But so that's why in the past, it's capped. So the more students you get involved in it, the less per student it costs us, because of just getting more and more students engaged in that.
Yes, increased participation is a double.
Correct, that's exactly right. So like you can see last year we had 13 students, and that fee is capped at $4,000.
Okay, do you have a motion? Second?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Any further questions? All those in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Student overnight trip requests.
Yes, we have 2 field requests that we are asking the board to approve that are overnight. One is for Future Business Leaders of America. They have their fall leadership conference coming up on November 10th through the 12th. There's a number of students that are listed as of 10/4. You can see that there may be a few more that are going. This is the opportunity to attend a state conference, develop leadership skills, as well as how to create and inspire leadership in others. Keynote speakers, workshops, and networking with FBLA members from across the state are benefits of the conference. And you'll see that Sandy Giuliani is our advisor. She partners with another school to have a male chaperone. She serves then as the female chaperone for the other school. Gives you male and female students going along to to this state conference, which is a great opportunity for our students. And then also, as we look ahead to 2021, we are looking for board approval for our German exchange study tour. So we've done this for a number of years now. Fry does this with students. There's a maximum of 20 students to be determined. They do early board approval allows them to begin fundraising, setting this up so we can make it as affordable as possible for our students in that way.
Entertain a motion to approve the overnight trip request as presented. Second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes. Gift reports.
Yes, we have a gift for Milwaukee Electric Tool Company that donated a couple different pallets of cordless power tools, ranging from drills to saws to torque wrenches, all this just pallets of stuff that they're able to use in that area. It's only it can only be used for schools. They cannot sell it. We have to agree to this. They do this. Milwaukee does this to local schools. They can't sell it. It can only be used for school work. They can trade with other schools. So if we need different, like there's an impact wrench that's like as big as this thing. Like, I mean, it's gonna take two of my hands to hold it. And so we only need a couple of those in the autos area. Maybe other schools need more or less. You can trade amongst schools, but you can't resell, and you just keep using it. And it's the latest, whatever their new power source is what it is. Milwaukee Tools, great tool company, and so they do this for education. So it's valued at $44,761. Is what that donation is.
So did they contact us, or did we apply for this, or?
Yeah, good question. I remember talking to Mike Dodge about this a while ago. He had a contact.
He has to indicate interest.
He has to indicate an interest, and we knew someone through it, is how we received it. And it sort of varies, is what they do. Yeah, it's in like one of the closets, and I opened the closet, it was like, oh, it's like my birthday. So it was taller than me. So yeah,
A lot of equipment.
yeah, a lot of equipment, which is great for our kids to be using and so forth. And then we have two other donations that we would ask the board to approve. Both of these relate to the every 15 minutes that we talked about earlier with other donations. We've seen these come through over the last couple months. This one from Chief Rice, Bill Rice, doing a personal donation to those project every 15 minutes in the amount of $250, as well as Thomas and Lori Wasmer, who also made a donation of $250 to the HOSA program.
Entertain a motion to accept the three gifts as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes, and of course, our heartfelt thanks for each and every one of those gifts.
And we will make sure to follow up on behalf of the district as well. To
Thank you.
all of them as well.
Schedule for December and March board meetings.
As we looked ahead, we might as well talk about both of them. The December one is is scheduled right now for the 23rd, which is when we are on winter break, and then the March board meeting is scheduled here while we are on spring break. So we are looking to get feedback from the board. The December one is when Kennedy will be presenting for their school showcase, so they're looking forward to doing that and looking for a date to be able to do that. We thought we might touch on that March date as well. We did look at the 16th as being a possibility, which is the third Monday of the month. So if we have a committee meeting on the 9th, we could still do that and then have just a meeting on the 16th.
16th. All right, we'll go with the 16th for December.
Okay.
Thoughts on March?
In March, we were looking as well at the 16th. It could be the 30th, but we thought coming back from break might not be the best idea, especially if people have flights or anything else or jobs going on during the day. So the 16th is what we would recommend.
I'll be on vacation.
Okay, everybody else?
Schedules.
Okay, so the 16th for both of those?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your flexibility.
District security update.
So Jamie and Pete, we have our monthly district-wide safety meeting, and at our last safety meeting, discussed some updates that we've had in the district that we wanted to share with the board and with the community. We're excited to see the work that's been accomplished, both through, in the last couple of years, both through the referendum, as well as through our budget, as well as through security grants, and a lot of the work that's accomplished that has really gone pretty seamlessly, all the way from, Raptor Technologies, which, we're in the second year of that, and it's going very well as we have visitors coming into our building, to security. So it's something that's very, very, very obvious, and secure entrances as people are coming in, to things that maybe are unknown with security cameras and so forth, that we wanted to make the board aware. There's a lot of work that Pete and Jamie and their teams have put together into these various things. So I will turn it over to them.
Thank you. So, security updates. So Pete Duffy has put a lot of time into these projects in regards to making these user-friendly and training the staff. So I really thank you for doing that. So two-way radios, walkie-talkies, to start off with. 44 new handheld radios purchased this year. We have 9 existing radios that we programmed into the system, and 1 repeater, and which the first picture there is the repeater. That gives us the option or opportunity to communicate district-wide, which we did not have before. So we have 1 of those mounted on the high school at this time, and 5 base stations in the main office, and that's so the second picture you'll see is the two-way radios, walkie-talkies, and then the base stations. So each building uses channels 1 to 3 on their walkie-talkies. And channel 16 is a district-wide communication. So anytime we have an issue, if there would be one, they communicate through the base station to maybe the high school at that time, and they can communicate to their staff or whoever needs to district office that we need to turn on channel 16, and now we can communicate district-wide. All channels are FCC licensed. Right?
Yep.
I'll turn it over to Pete.
And the FCC license is mainly just so that we are, you would need to run a full scanner to listen to our radio communications. You can't just go to Costco and buy a radio and it's going to be interheard. We did have that issue in some cases before. The next thing we're going to talk about is DORAC.
Yeah, so at the table when we're having these discussions, we have the police and the fire as well. So we have representatives from both of them as we have these discussions, looking at, because if we were ever to be in an emergency, cell phone service may be an issue. And you may, even dialing, I'm calling Scott, and then Scott doesn't answer, and then I'm like, okay, what's Kevin's number? Like, who's the next person we call? Calling Jamie, Topher doesn't answer, whatever it may be. The walkie-talkie system is something that system-wide will help us across the district.
Piecemeal or at the end?
Let's go section by section. So let's go with walkie-talkie, sure.
Just how come we went from 9 to 44?
And the reason for that is we purchased additional radios for each of the buildings. 9 were originally at the high school only, and the other the elementaries and middle school were using lesser power walkie-talkies. One of the things that actually, beyond the security aspect of this, but from a building use standpoint, one of the aspects that what necessitated this move also was the amount of power that we can gain because we are FCC licensed. We can now use a stronger walkie-talkie, which allows the buildings to hear from one end of the building to the other. In some cases, we were running into problems where certain radios weren't powerful enough to make it all the way through the building. Previously, this allows us to make it all the way through each of our buildings.
It also allows us to have fire teachers to be able to have walkie-talkie, which is a big benefit, instead of where's the class at? Where is
Yeah.
Mr.
Especially
Norris's
when
Phi Ed class today? Is he in the weight room? Is he outside? We're in an emergency. The walkie-talkie system. So we really, and Pete did a really nice job of working with our first responders to make sure that we were purchasing something that was expandable, but also was high quality, that met the needs of what we needed to be able to do.
And like Mr. Nelson said, that we receive our guidance or direction from the district safety committee.
Thank you.
Okay. Door access, this is more our external key access, although there are some internal. We now have, at this current time, we have 68 doors monitored, doors with key fob readers on them. We have 91 door monitored locations. The difference being that a door monitored is a door that is just it might be a fire door, it might be a general exit or something like that. It might be an overhead door, somewhere where you don't generally gain access from the outside, but you do have egress from the inside. All key fobs are programmable for common locations, so that means that if we have certain groupings of staff or coaches or something like that in the future, if we'd like to limit their time to that they can fob in from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. or something like that, we can do that. We actually do have an ability already for some curriculum needs internally that our staff can enter each of the buildings internally, or each of the buildings throughout the school day, but then only access their building outside of normal school hours. So that is a benefit for when there's curriculum, committee work, or things like that going on.
Even as simple as coming from the high school to the district office, we have that fob. So you walk from the high school, you don't have to walk around all the way to the other side. You just fob in right at that. You walk on the gravel and you come in right down from my office there. So it's simple in that way. Or you have a curriculum meeting in John Long and I'm a Kennedy teacher, we can still get into that building during the school hours.
And then as far as the reader, any door that has a reader on it, we can then program that door for times also. So that is very beneficial that we can program our doors to be unlocked for large events or activities and not necessarily need to hold the doors open via their physical mechanism. So we don't have to, so especially if there isn't a district personnel there to make sure they're relocked, they automatically lock themselves when the event is, whatever the event scheduled time was completed. This also helps a lot with our coming and going throughout the school day, both before school, unlocking for when parent drop-off begins to the beginning of the school day, automatically unlocks and relocks. And then, especially at the high school with the amount that it's used outside of our school hours after school to be able to unlock certain doors and have them automatically relock, it greatly benefits the program. The other thing that this allows us to do, that this system allows us to do, is to have a monitoring of our door access, what currently is open, unlocked, relocked. So we have, this is something that each of the buildings are going to, or either are trained in or are going to be trained in. I'm still working on building this component out 100%, but we have different symbols that show up on the different maps that are part of the system, everything from door locked to door unlocked, which means that there's a scheduled event causing it to unlock. Door held open means there might be a cone or a rock or something like that in the door. Why is it being held open? And then door forced open means that somebody is egressing out that door without a key fob swipe from the outside. What we generally speaking, that isn't all that concerning, except for when it's meant to be a fire door or something like that. This is something that in the offices, if they would see something flash up in that respect, they could investigate then via the camera system, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So without having to necessarily leave their desk, and then if there is something they need to follow up with, then most definitely they can. So, any questions about door access?
This screen is really nice. You can really see if somebody exits a door right away, instantly.
And it actually also pops up instantaneously if somebody does does fob in, it pops their name up by that door live, so you can kind of see who's coming and going at that time.
What happens when there's a door that's propped open for any length of time?
It, depending on the door location, we can have it scheduled to do different things in that respect. So we can have egress doors, fire egress doors that the minute they're open, it can email and or text a set list. Versus a general egress door or like a cafeteria door, which is going to open and close a lot, especially after hours. Maybe we set that after 10 minutes it emails or something like that. That's still a component that we're building out, but it is an available feature. Okay, and then camera systems. We have greatly built out our camera system over the last year and a half, 2 years. We now have 2 Exact Vision recording servers inside the district, 238 total cameras. The breakdown is right here of our cameras. We, generally speaking, have a good mix of internal and external cameras, and I'm going to jump into the system in just a second to just give a quick overview of that. But it is a very, we're getting to the point where we have a thorough coverage within our respective areas. What I'll show you here in just a second is the live views and different maps and tracking abilities within the camera system. So with that, I'm actually going to just jump right to our camera system. This is currently live view of our system. Hopefully we have good, or hopefully we get some activity. We don't have, with the sports teams starting to slow down, we don't have quite as much activity going on. What we have is different, what we've built as part of the system is different view groups, so that it is a little bit easier to group the cameras. When you have 238 cameras, granted, as far as the administrators go, they only have, or they may have only their building, but even still, to have all the cameras is a lot.
I'm trying to send Mr. Mante to go to one of those spots. So you can see, so he's not leaving.
So
because this is a pretty cool feature.
What we have, if he's actually going to, he's walking out that door, that's East End.
At 3 o'clock.
I figured he knows where those hallways are, that's why I asked him to go out there.
Okay,
There he is.
So, of course, he just hopped on a camera that I don't have the next feature totally set up on, but he's heading towards one that I do. So what we have the ability to do as part of this system, he's actually heading down that way, so that is, there he is. So what we have here is we can turn on these blue squares, and what that allows us to do is once we're in a camera view and he's moving to the next camera view, I can double click within the next blue square and he is going to come into view right away, and he's going to be heading down that way and head towards the front office. So once again, we're going to camera track him to the next vestibule area. It allows us to, if we have an active incident happening, it allows us to see what he, or where that activity is moving to without having to jump through a lot of different not having to necessarily know the next camera name. We can just quickly, and this is something that we are building out. Not every area, not every building has that feature completely 100% set yet, but it is something we are building out. We also do have, and right now some of the views are a little difficult to see, but we do have cameras on the exterior of our buildings, so that we have, and with the new white LED lighting, even at night we have pretty good picture clarity and coverage. Another feature that that we have built out is the map view, and what this allows us to do, and right now this is going to be a little bit of a challenge just because once again we don't have a ton of activity happening in our buildings. But what you see here is a map that of representing every camera location in the building. And what you see when a camera turns blue, that means that that area is detecting motion at this time. So once again, it's a good overview of, especially at this time of night, why do we have motion in these areas, what's going on, that type of thing. It's a great overview, quick view. The other thing is, especially at certain times of the day, in some of our buildings, certain areas are not heavily used, and all of a sudden there is a lot of motion in that area. It would be something that could be looked at, investigated by just clicking and dragging a camera over to that area, which it's actually picking up the person walking past. So it's something that really gives us a nice, very good overview, quick view of our system, and just something that we really appreciate the amount of coverage that we have been able to gain. And I showed mainly the high school just because that's the most built out system, but we are progressing forward with all the buildings on these same fronts. So, any questions on the camera?
And they get recorded?
Recording according to board policy, yes.
Live time feeds, who has access?
Currently, administration, select office personnel, and then police at the moment. We are working with the safety committee on also working with fire also in case, because they would actually benefit after one of the calls this summer. It would help them a little bit also. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that's put in this, and we saw this, we were like, the board, it'd be great for you to see this. Even that tracking thing, that's where it's the hardest thing, like, where did this guy go, you know, where did this girl go, you're looking. The nice thing is now, if you find that person, if it's on recorded video, then you're gonna be able to find them and then get to that spot where something allegedly happened, or you're just looking for details of it, and be able to, if you're sending someone to that on the walkie-talkie, you'll be calling because you're able to follow that person very easily, which is great. And that's a lot of work that Pete's put into this thing, making it as user-friendly as possible, but we really feel good about the work that's been accomplished in this area.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you. Well, thanks for coming. Thank you.
Yeah.
And last facilities update here are
So we've changed it to facilities update instead of construction update, if you've noticed that. Because we're really moving away from construction. It's really becoming more of a facilities update. And so we have some pictures that Jamie has worked to put together for us to update us on what's happening in our facilities. Some of it's referendum related, some of it is not, but we'll move into that facilities piece.
Okay, facilities update. So basically, we are completed with our site work, other than the punch list that we are still continuing to work with, also warranty issues. But you can see right here, landscaping is already, the grass is coming in. We're looking at the district office and the west parking lot over by the high school. Also was a challenge, but the large areas west of district office and the high school are now seeded, landscape. This is one of the biofilters. This is over by the tennis courts. It is also completed. Everything is done with that site. Kennedy also, biofilter is completed. Maintenance, now part of maintenance, and as you look at these biofilters, you will see an overflow catch basin, and this particular one is designed to have 15 inches of water standing. However, obviously there's going to be some low areas, but that's about it. And then I have to maintain and record for the DNR when a couple times a year, when we have a heavy rain, when it fills up, how much time it takes to run off. So part of maintenance with these will be mulch, tilling, and inspecting the plants and replacing plants as needed, and then reporting back to the DNR. Yes, go ahead.
So the 15-inch, so when you had that heavy rain,
Yes.
what impact did that have on the biofilters?
I was very impressed. After, if you recall that this one was completely installed wrong, and they replaced everything, and within hours it was completely gone.
And I was at Kennedy the other day, and when that day that it rained, whatever day that was, it just kept raining, and it was like gushing, and Craig and I were walking around the building, because I left my umbrella in the car, and I'm like, let's take a walk around. Thought I was leaving. And so we were looking, it was pouring outside, and everything funnels to that biofilter, whether the pavement or the roof. And that was, there was no water to be seen in that area. I mean, it's really been a huge, that warranty work that they did to get that right has worked out really well. Craig?
Yep, so it's a 10, I'm sorry.
Dramatically different than last year when it was installed improperly. There was standing water for weeks, and now, in a matter of hours, right over.
Is standing water even for hours acceptable? When you have 5-year-old kids within 15 feet?
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't even say it's standing water that we're seeing, though. Like, you can see water, but it isn't like inches of water that's in there. Even with the heavy rain that we've had.
Yes,
it hasn't been a problem.
and you're not going to really have recess at these times. You know, even right after a heavy rain, you know, it's going to be muddy, and it's going to be inclement weather.
They were having indoor recess that day.
And we're constantly assessing everything, you know, everything. So if it becomes an issue, then we'll have to address it at that time. So here's the district office, and you can see some brickwork, but as you recall, right on this side, there's a north end of the district office, that was a hallway on the other side, and these were classrooms. So as they demoed the GES, they also damaged a lot of bricks. So you can see some brickwork. Holton Brothers came in and replaced some brick, they did some tuck pointing, and then you can see some, a different brick, kind of a tan brick that was installed during the referendum. So we corrected that. Now what you see, we did some tuck pointing, replaced a brick, blended the existing brick and the new brick together with staining process. And this is also, if you recall, this was that tan, real light tan, it just didn't match on the west side. It looks really nice now. They did a great job.
There's a 25-year warranty on that stain.
Yes.
Is what that goes with.
So this is an area just from district office leading towards the west parking lot. And the sidewalk ended. And we noticed that everybody is using this. Nobody's walking around. So we needed to do something about that. So you can see the area. And now we added stairs. Really nice feature. Same thing with this area. This is just east of the stairs. The students drop off. They get onto the sidewalk from the west parking lot, and the sidewalk ended. So they had to go back into the parking lot and walk around. So we needed to add extension of the sidewalk. So that was also completed. Kennedy Elementary School, this is the old terrazzo floor that over the weekend they were able to come in and recarpet. Nice change. A lot of compliments from that. Also, entry vestibule area. This is mainly a staff, but also students use this for recess. And you can see this was terrazzo. They have they started prepping it. This is a leveling compound before they put the carpet over it. And this is what it looks like now. That was also completed recently. Now we're over to John Long Middle School, varsity baseball and softball fields. So we talked about this, doing some maintenance in the outfield. This is called sand trenching. So every 8 to 10 inches, you could see the trenches and they refilled them with sand. And then after this was done, they rolled the field and we will overseed it, but it's gonna be ready to go. This is gonna really help with drainage. This is a practice that they have been using through the Midwest, and this company came from St. Louis. Here's an overview of the projects, the project that we are doing with artificial turf, varsity baseball and softball field. We are looking at the baseball field right now, and you can see on the outfield all the way around, bordering the entire infield, you can see concrete curbing, and then right inside the concrete curbing is perforated drainage tiles. So after this, they will remove the dirt. There's going to be flat panels. They're going to put the infield and then artificial turf on that, and it rolls over. So I will give an update, but it rolls over the concrete and attaches to the outside of the concrete. This is softball, varsity softball. They started on the baseball, and then obviously they're also starting on the softball fields. Here they're installing for the backstops, the poles for the backstops. With this project, they were really scheduled last Wednesday to be done with the varsity field, but you figure every time it rains, it delays them 2 days. So they spend an entire day, not 2 days, pumping out. And Mother Nature has not helped us out lately. Just like last year, it was a challenge, 14 inches over average. Now we're already 11 inches over average this year. We're confident this is going to still happen, no doubt about it. But now our schedule is for next Wednesday to put the artificial turf on the varsity, and a week after that, barring any major storms, the softball field will be done. And we finish it up with the Acuity sign that is installed. Any questions?
You mentioned something about the light for the sign?
Yeah, so Tom Lobner, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, who's been helping us with this. They installed it, and he's been out of vacation. He's been out of town for I think last week and a half. And he felt like when he installed it, they checked it, but it doesn't appear that the LED is supposed to be lighting up from the inside, and it isn't doing that at that time. So we're still working through that. So it will be visible at night. It just isn't right now. And there's going to be, you can go back to that, Jamie, there'll also be some plantings that will be going around there, that will help that area. It's just at this time we're not doing it, but in the spring that'll help that also. It's a little taller than the old one, more easily seen from the road. I've had multiple people comment to me that they've seen that as well.
Is the sand trenching being done in fields?
Yes, that is correct. It is already completed in the other fields. Yes.
Is there a reason for the elevation difference and pitch difference of the two green spaces to the west by GES? One is crowned.
Okay.
The other that is further west is generally flat and 2 or 3 feet lower. Well, maybe not 2 or 3 feet, foot and a half.
I will have to look at the punch list to see if that was noted. And I'm not sure we're going to be able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
They're just our open fields, and but I will look into that. Okay.
And it sort of, I don't know if it has to do with the driveways you're leaving go out to 60, because it sort of comes down and gives you a little drainage area there that flows into
One closer
the
east
closest
and
to us.
the
The further one just goes all the way. It flat goes all the way. So I don't know if it has to do with that. That might be the question. I would wonder that, because I noticed that when it rains, it does sort of flow both from the drive on the way out to 60 and from the grass. It comes down to that drain area there.
Maybe it's all sheet draining to the east.
That's I'm assuming, but we can ask that.
Any additional questions? Good progress, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right, then, item 6, the Board of Education will convene in closed session to 1, consider performance-related data of the superintendent, 2, consider employee compensation, and 3, conduct public business regarding the transportation contract in which competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. All this is in accordance with Wisconsin State Statutes 1985-1, sub C and sub E. Motion to convene into closed session.
So moved. Second.
Take a roll vote. John?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes.